We're learning Hilchos Megillah, Perek Beis, Halacha Tezvov. Rambam begins. Ketzah chayv Suda zu shiur. What is the chayv of the Suda on Purim? The meal that you're supposed to eat on Purim. Shiur al boso. You should eat meat. Yisakin Suda no kefi hashatim tziyodai. As much as he finds it in his capacity to do. We'll go down to the Peirush. Yishoyse yayin ad sheishtakya. And he drinks wine until he becomes inebriated or drunk, as they say. And he should become. He should sleep from his drunkenness. Magim Yishna, Sites of Megillah, in Zion base. Chai Vidishla B'sumim Purim. It says a person is obligated to drink on Purim, which says yayin, drink wine, l'ishtakel, and become drunk. Now remember, for Halacha, the Halacha, even though Revi'as yayin, you can't pass it because you're drunk, or Kohen going into the Beis HaMikdash. Adon lo yoda, he has only until he loses the ability to comprehend between Baruch Mordechai Lor Haman, which actually, according to Gematria, are the same number. Agoy's Maimonides cites that Rav Yor writes that even if you did not become that drunk, you yoytze the obligation of Suda. Shiur al boso, the Maggid Mishnah says, when it says other places, Ein Simcha Boso, it means as a hemshech of Halacha Yudalat. But Purim, you have to have your Simcha. And here he paskins, with Yom Tov, when he explains the mitzvah Sumah Zachag, that people eat boso, v'shoysim yayin, shein simcha lo boso v'yayin. You only find simcha when eating meat and wine. The Maggid Mishnah Etzleinu, the Maggid Mishnah Be'az doesn't bring this concept of yayin having to do with simcha, because this is a unique requirement to drink on Purim, so that he will fall asleep from his shikrus. Now, the Kiyas Melech, Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky Shlita cites in Bava Metzia 78b that for Sudas Purim you take agolim, calves, you slaughter them, you eat them. The Tur says it's a mitzvah to have a lot of Suda Purim. The Bach cites the Megillah, that's mutter. Megillah 7b says it's mutter shaloi lovei lebeis hamelish ma'am mistiras hasuda. Now one is permitted not to come to the shul if he's preparing the suda. Sha'oizu b'mitzvah lahavis b'sudas Purim, since he's involved in one mitzvah potter little moed bebeis hamelish. He's potter from learning Torah in beis hamelish. V'atur moisev, Torah says v'tzor sheishtake ad shelo yoda me or homon leBaruch Mordechai. The Beis Yosef cites Toisus in Megillah 7b. What does it mean? You shouldn't know between Orahom and Baruch Mordechai, and also Ahura Zeresh Labucha Esther. And it also mentions the Nusaf Ahurim Kol HaRishoyim Beruchim Kol HaYehudim Beruchim Kol HaTzadikim. The Gemara cites that Rove Abzera drank on Sudas Purim, and Rove, by accident, he slaughtered Abzera, literally cut his throat. But Ran cites Rabbeinu Ephraim that therefore the din of Rove was therefore nullified, and you shouldn't become drunk on Purim because you might kill somebody, especially if you're driving cars. It means in the Hilchos Chaim that one is obligated to drink but not to become drunk, because being totally drunk is forbidden, and there's no avera more than this, that it causes gila haroish, viras domim, and other averas as well. Rather, he should drink a little bit more than he's usually accustomed to. The Bach cites that the Ran and the Baal HaMeir agreed to the Rabbeinu Ephraim that this obligation to drink Ad lo yoda has been pushed off. It's not a requirement, but you should drink more and he's accustomed to, so you should be happy, you should be satiated, or even shikur. That means that you wouldn't permit him to speak before the king, but he still has rational thoughts, and not like shikurus of Loit, where he didn't know what he was doing. The Ramah cites from Aguda, Shem the Aguda, and the Rabbeinu Yeruchim, that the gematria of Haman and Baruch Mordechai is equal, 502. And you have to get drunk until you can't make the cheshbon. If you start to add up the numbers, you won't be able to do it. In the Mariv writes, Sheyishtake v'yershon, and when you're sleeping, you don't know the difference between Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai. And the Menhogim writes that it was a piyut that there was a special song put together that the people would answer after the person said the stanza. They would answer either Baruch Mordechai or Haman. And if you got mixed up because you were drunk, then you knew that you had fulfilled your obligation. That's what it's referring to. Go to the next page. The Shulchan Aruch says the halacha is that you have to drink on alcoholic beverages on Purim until he cannot differentiate between Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai. And the Ramah says there are those who say that you don't have to become drunk. Ella, he should drink more than he's accustomed to, and he should go to sleep. And since he's sleeping, he won't know the difference between Or Haman and Baruch Mordechai anyway. And even though there are those who drink a lot and there are those who drink very little, the main intent is he should do it not for the sake of getting drunk, but for the mitzvah of Purim. The Bia Halacha cites for the Hayodam, all the Nisa of Purim Nasa were done because of the Suda of Esther and wine. Therefore, Chacham required that one should drink more than he's accustomed to remind himself that the nest came about from a Suda, and eat more. And if somebody knows that if he gets drunk, then he's going to look terrible, and he won't wash his hands correctly to make a moitzi, or he won't say birchas hamazon, or he won't have mincha ma'ariv, or he'll become lightheaded and say things that he shouldn't say. It's better he shouldn't get drunk, and as long as his actions are being done for the sake of heaven. Similarly, a person is obligated to send 2 monos boso. Rambam says ichayev is one of the mitzvahs. L'shleich 2 monos boso, or shnei mini tavshul, or 2 types of cooked items, or shnei mini oichlan, or two foods. The chaveroi to his friend. Shnema says mishloach monos. It says you should send monos. Monos is plural. Ish l'rei, or one to his friend. And the whole obligation is just to one other person, even though the stores won't like that as a halacha. Monis is plural, and hayeu is singular. The other mitzvah is to send 2 monis to one person, either 2 types of meat, 2 types of cooked item, and you have to have that which is enough to eat from. But if the Ram adds, if you send a lot to your friends, it's good, praiseworthy. If he doesn't have enough to give one person, machlif. He should exchange his meal in chaveroi. So say one could something like this happens later during the show. I'm sure on Purim, the piece of bread they had, each one gave it to the other person. They each send each other the meal. Now, when you send a sudas itself to his friend, he's mekayim the mitzvah. His friend sends to him, his friend is mekayim the mitzvah. Hamagim Mishnah cites Megillah, Zion Omer Aleph, that this is the case. Now, on what it says, Rambam writes, if he doesn't have, he exchanged it with his friend. The Maggid Mishnah cites Megillah, Zion Beis, Abayan of Nina, who would exchange sudas one with the other. But Rashi explains This one eats with the other one with Purim Shoshana Zu. That 1 year, one person eats by his friend, and by next year they reverse the situation. That A eats with B, and then B eats with A in the following year. Lacha Mishnah Beis Yosef question that if that's the case, one of them didn't keep the mitzvah Mishleach Moed. So Lacha Mishnah explains that one gives a suda to his friend a matona this year, and his friend gives him back part of the suda and eats with him. There's only enough for one meal, I guess. So he gives it totally to his friend, so he gave it. The other one gives him back for him to eat also, so he also got. We're continuing on Tzadik Aleph. Shatur writes, if they exchange sudas, the yoytze. We series of questions. What's the chiddush? What's he telling us? And the Ramah explains that even if we'll say that he has to send it, you really have to send it, and therefore if you with your friend you're not yoytze, there's no question, because actually this is the opinion when it says sending, it doesn't mean it's literally sending. That's if he eats together with his friend. He concludes that it's difficult to say, because the person who receives the monos wasn't yoytze his obligation this year. The Bach explains the Shitas Rashi that since Mishleach Monos is in order to make his friend happy, and they should have between themselves friendship and love, if one ate with his friend, both of them are simcha, and therefore they're pivotal in Mishleach Monos. Even if every year they'll continuously have A eating by B, the yoytze. You don't need to have the next year that B should eat by A. And this rule applies to wealthy people as well. Just that usually, if they're wealthy, if Reuven ate by Shimon this year, then Shimon will feel obligated to eat by Reuven the next year. The Rambam and the Ran explains that you have to send a suda to his friend that does not have the ability to send, and he should leave for himself, and therefore you have to exchange sudas. That's why it's not enough to eat by the other person. And the chiddush is that even though he's not gaining more, he ends up with the same amount of food, or one suda's worth of food. They exchanged it, but l'chatchila you should do it from things that are beyond the necessities of the meal. Shulchan Aruch paskins, you have to send to your chavero 2 monos of bosa or types of food items, because this is mishleach monos, which is plural. Ish l're'eu, matonos, because matonos is bay 2 matonos to one person. Mishnah Berurah cites that Shuas Ben Etzion is not sure if you do it without a shliach yoytze, because it says a mishloyach. That's why people have little children going around doing it, so that you won't have the problem of not having a shliach. Dr. Moshe says, according to Rashi, it would seem you don't need to have it with a shliach because you're eating with the other person, so there's no shliachas involved at all. The Halacha says that the Chayei Odom proves in the Yerushalmi, if you send to an oisha something that's not valuable, you're not yoytze. So it pays, if you're not the oisha, it doesn't pay to send something to an oisha. And so it seems in the Ritvo. But other poskim don't mention this. Now, you should send monos, which are royas, according to the one who receives it. It should be chosher by the receiver. The Mishnah Berurah further says that shuleach begodim, if you send clothing and other items which are not food, it's a nice idea, but you're not mekayim the chayv of mishleach monos. Shulchan Aruch, if you send drinks, you are yoytze, because when you say achila, it means also drinking, and therefore you can send one cake and one wine. It brings from the Magen Avraham in the name of the Maril. If you send, it has to be able to be eaten right away. Therefore, you can't send him a piece of raw meat that's not cooked. According to Bichodesh, And so it would seem from the Taz that if it's slaughtered, you can cook it right away. The only question might come up in the time when they didn't have defrosting, that if you send them a frozen piece of meat, which if you sent them an hour before the end of Purim, you wouldn't be yoitza because you didn't have something that could be cooked. Now, Mechaber continues. If he doesn't have, he changes with his friend, exchanges. This one sends to this one sends to the other one. The Mishnah Berurah says that you fulfill your obligation, even if you go to eat together. The Gemara says that you should send Mishleach Monos by day, not by night. And you send it to Monos, and his friend doesn't want to receive it, or he's Moichalim, he's Yotza. And a woman is Chayav in Matonas Lav Yoinim Mishleach Monos, just like a man. Just that woman should send to a woman, and a man to a man, not fakert. Because a man should not send to an almona, and it became a question of kedushin and matonos lavyonim. When it comes to giving money, though, there you don't have to worry about it. Why is that different? Because it's recognized, I guess, in a aniyim, they know they're not receiving it for kedushin. But if you send something as a friendship, what is it? Supposedly, when it says v'ahavta l'yaachov kamocha, Chazal tell us the greatest friendship is with your wife, and therefore, ish l're'ehu, you have to be careful. I guess that's why you have to be careful here. We go to the bottom of the page. Sholach monos tachaveroi. If you send portions to his friend and they got lost or stolen, so the Ma'aser Rokeach is not sure if he kept the mitzvah. And also, he's not sure if he sends something on condition that his friend should send him something back, because maton almanas la'achsa is called a matona, or you should send that item back to him. And he brings down from Sefer B'nei Chaya that Mishleach Monos is because of Simcha. If it's stolen or lost or was given back, he didn't have the mitzvah Simcha because the fellow doesn't have anything. You accomplished an action, but you didn't accomplish the outcome of that action, which is Simcha. And therefore, the one who receives it has to be happy. And therefore, a mourner who's forbidden all simcha, you don't send him. And now, turn the page. We sent his friend, and it didn't come to his hands, or we gave it to him on condition to return. There's only the person's upset, and you're not yoitza. Now, the Rambam says, if you continue to send to many friends, it's praiseworthy. So the Keser Melech, in the name of his father-in-law, cites Megillah 7b, and Rava sent the Mar Ba'amori, Shloach Monis, through Abaya. Mar Ba'amori returned it to him through Abaya, Shloach Monis, Rava Tavlinen. Abaya said when he got back to Mori Ba'amori, Kirvu B'vonav Samach Mini Oichlin V'Ochlon. He gave Abaya to eat 60 different types of food, and he ate it. And the question is, in Amikayim Mishloach Monos B'Tavlinen, with how could he send to Rava spices? He'd have either meat or something he can eat. So it must be that he kept the Mori was Makayim the mitzvah Mishloach Monos first with the food and to other people, and then for good friendship he sent spices to Rava, and that's enough because it was Samachim as part of the idea of you can continue to send to others. But it would seem that the Kavanah of the Rambam is that since the mitzvah is to cause friendship, like the Bach, Mons Halevi say, therefore the Mahabal Shloach is Meshubach, even though he was Yotzi Dechayvosoi, because Mabe Reus Yisrael. He's Mabe friendship in Yisrael.